Thank you all for joining this afternoon our webinar on improving compliance and documentation productivity with speech recognition. I'm going to get our slides up here and advancing. Great. So before I get started, I did want to make a couple of very brief remarks. First of all, we will be collecting throughout the presentation today your questions, and we would encourage everyone to use the chat feature, the Q&A feature in the WebEx to ask questions. We'll be collecting them throughout the presentation, and as you see in the agenda, getting to them at the end. Secondly, I did want to start by acknowledging that perhaps many of you on the phone are familiar with our consumer product. A lot of people, when we speak about Dragon and Dragon Professional Group, say, oh yeah, I know Dragon Naturally Speaking. And I mention that only because of the fact that while we're still very much in that business today, and that's a very good business for us, we're going to be showing you Dragon Professional Group today, and it's a very different product geared for professionals in the finance sector as well as other professionals within business services sector. So with that being said, let's just quickly go through the agenda. We're going to begin today speaking on a subject all of you on the phone know as well, if frankly not better than the folks at Nuance, and that's the business implications of compliance. We'll speak to the current environment today and some of the challenges that financial advisors are facing and why documentation matters. Increasingly, documentation is taking up a larger and larger part of the role of the financial advisor. We'll move next into speech recognition as integral to the CRM systems and overall documentation workflow. And then I'll turn this over to my colleague, Mr. Tom Vane, our sales engineer, who will take you through a live demonstration of Dragon and show you some examples of how you can use Dragon in creating financial plans for your clients. And then finally, as I mentioned, we'll move into Q&A. So let's talk a little bit about the business implications of compliance. So at a high level, here's an example of some of the major regulatory bodies that have federal rulings and regulations that are increasingly putting pressure on broker-dealers today in the marketplace. So obviously FINRA, Department of Labor, the SEC, and IROC in Canada. And at a high level, these agencies have adopted and crafted regulations surrounding the responsibilities for financial advisors as it relates to engagement with clients and maintaining accurate records related to processes, disclosures, policies, etc. Clearly, the one that's been getting a lot of attention in the last year or so is the fiduciary ruling from the Department of Labor. But broadly speaking, client interactions that advisors have with their clients have long been subject to regulatory oversight to ensure consistency, fairness, and transparency. And that's especially true when you look at retail investors and perhaps smaller investors that may not understand all of the intricacies involved in financial products and how they fit together within a plan. All of this is increasingly creating, as we speak to customers, a culture of what I call culture of compliance, where even things like impromptu types of conversations that an advisor may have with their client are being documented back to clients as part of their overall financial plan. And yet beyond simply strict compliance with the letter of the law, if you will, increasing documentation requirements around disclosure and transparency are really creating, for the advisors that know how to take advantage of them, creating opportunities to create value. And that value, that heightened value, is becoming ever more important given shifts in demographics, technology, and candidly, education level of clients as they learn more and more. So let's move on. So this slide here on challenges faced today by FA should be, an extremely familiar one to everyone on the phone today. Financial advisors in their firms are facing increased pressure. Commoditization is key. The rise of so-called robo-advisors, particularly with clients that have under 100K of investable assets, is putting pressure in commoditization, if you will, of some services. Greater oversight in products of these services is also related to things like the client base and associated changes in compensation models as it relates to conflict of interest. And obviously this is where the Department of Labor's fiduciary ruling comes in. And you're seeing a shift increasingly to things like fee-based services as opposed to compensation based on commissions. All of this, changes in demographics, documentation requirements, is really pointing to the need for advisors to possess heightened skills, particularly in areas of soft skills, being tuned in to the emotional needs of a client, what their goals are, things like, do they want to leave a legacy for a particular cause, or even things as mundane as ensuring a solid retirement so as not to be a burden to their children in their old age, etc. So the focus here is on more from an advice standpoint, away from the strict mechanics, if you will, of how a plan and the composition of financial products should be, and more toward this idea of creating value and personalization in a financial plan that candidly cannot be done today using things like robo-advisors. So taken collectively, all of these challenges are pointing toward the need for more frequent, higher quality documentation delivered to clients, and ultimately that should be made available to regulators. So how are these challenges being manifest today in the marketplace? This is not just an academic sort of a trend, if you will. The stats that you see in front of you are from the 2016 Cerulli Associates Marketplace Advisor report, and this is the survey that they do every year. And increasingly what you're seeing, of course, is this idea of more and more emphasis. 63% of respondents say that the DOL's fiduciary ruling will increase administrative and compliance costs and documentation and due diligence. 24% of the advisors that respond said they're spending a quarter of their time almost on administrative activities such as paperwork. And as we had talked about earlier, about a third plan to increase the use of digital-based advice technology for clients with less than 100K of investable assets. So all of this time that's being spent on paperwork and in meeting compliance is not time that is being spent in front of clients and generating new business for the firm. So why ultimately does documentation matter? And why is it increasingly becoming a competitive advantage for firms that can embrace the challenges as opportunities and use it as an ability to differentiate their products and services? So the headline here of why documentation matters really comes down to the idea of personalization. Regulations like the fiduciary rule will drive increases in documenting, as I said, those extemporaneous client conversations, which can then be given back to a client. It may be an insight. It may be a client that has a moment, if you will, talking about why having a financial plan is important to them and what they want to do in the long term. Consumers increasingly will become savvier and may even ask an advisor to take a chain of custody mindset in handling their assets, documenting how and where they're sold, transferred, et cetera, amongst various investments. And in addition to that, firms today are looking into their CRM systems as a data collection point to capture that client information and being able to use that for marketing purposes as well as also for compliance purposes as well. And having the ability today to not have to rekey information manually from paper records is going to be key. And then finally, is in fulfilling fiduciary responsibilities to their clients, firms do need the ability to connect these client conversations, particularly those covering investment recommendations within their CRM systems. So why speech recognition? in driving better outcomes, and how can speech help the challenges that firms face today? Simply put, speech recognition empowers advisors to naturally and systemically capture details of the client relationship that may have been impractical before, or even lost, frankly, and not captured before. Speech recognition solutions, like we'll show you today with Dragon, free advisors of time that normally would have been spent capturing notes by hand, if you will, only to have to rekey them manually within the CRM. So whether it's taking the form of effortlessly summarizing notes from a meeting with a client, or quickly inserting things, and we'll show you this momentarily, like boilerplate text and disclosure documents by uttering a single word, increasingly speech is being used for these purposes today. And you see up here on the screen from the standpoint of improving the immediacy of a client interaction, the accuracy and detail, and streamlining those communications, and frankly, as we just talked about, mitigating business risk while at the same time fostering regulatory compliance. So, is integral to the documentation workflow, how is speech being used today? So, in a nutshell, it comes down to getting more done with less time. So you see here, typically most people can speak and dictate 3 times faster than they can type. Using Dragon, you can do that with 99% accuracy. From streamlining repetitive workflows over and over again, as you have to present things like disclosures and boilerplate type text as part of a financial plan, you can do that very effortlessly using Dragon. Within the CRM, it's not just about dictation, it's also about what we call command and control, which is the ability to control virtually any menu item within the CRM, as well as using business intelligence tools like Thompson One. For financial advisors that are in the field, they can capture using a digital recorder, they can capture their notes from client conversations and actually feed the sound file, the MP3 file, when they get back to their office, feed that into Dragon and have it all instantly transcribed for them. They can edit and format documents, launch applications, open files, all by voice, which is, a general productivity enhancement. And then finally, searching and being able to perform searches, queries, and even the ability to fill out forms faster, again, all by voice. All of this is enabled through speech recognition for clients and for advisors serving clients using speech rec. So finally, and we'll be showing you a picture of this. Tom, I think, can show you a picture of this. We have a tool that we use. We call it the PowerMic III, which is very often used today by advisors. It is a microphone. It's an ergonomic microphone and mouse built into one. It has a very familiar to a lot of people press-to-talk dictation capability. It makes using Dragon a very natural process. It works extremely well, even with ambient noise and noisy environments. We use it all the time when we were at trade shows and the like, and people are very amazed that even in a noisy environment like a trade show, you can speak right into the PowerMic and it accurately captures everything that you speak. Advisors use this to fluidly interact with their CRM systems without distraction and without task switching, all using one device and being able to navigate within the Windows application. So be happy to show that to you. And again, we tend to package this very often with Dragon Professional Group, and we'll show you an example of that. So without any further ado, if you will, what I'd like to do is pass this over to Tom Vane. And Tom, I'm going to pass you the ball here in a second and have you show a live demonstration.
Fantastic. Thanks, Eric. So I'm just setting things up now to get you seeing my screen. You guys should see this big blue screen that says Nuance on it. If it helps you see my screen, there's a little button above where my mouse is bouncing on my screen that should allow you to expand this view full screen and make it easier to see my presentation today. But just to reiterate a couple topics that Eric talked about, some things that we've noticed with, Dragon and financial advisors from our experience is financial advisors and professionals spend a large part of their day at their desk typing notes and client account data, the specific data they require to meet their clients' needs. There's often a fine line or fine balance between collecting enough information and actually remaining productive and available, all while keeping within compliance. This demonstration is going to highlight the speed and accuracy benefits of dictation. For example, a financial advisor can use Dragon on their desktop to dictate their notes, emails, or any other type of document. Typing can be cumbersome, full of errors, and lacking in detail. Using Dragon is going to let you elaborate on your notes and contacts with your client, all at the speed of talking, even if you consider yourself a pretty fast typist. Also, I want to point out a financial advisor could just as easily dictate their material presented here into a digital recorder, such as like a handheld device, or even their smartphone while out in the field. And they can go back and transcribe that text when he or she returns to their PC. Now, I want to introduce first, what does Dragon look like? You're looking at my screen and seeing this little black box at the top of the screen. This is what we refer to as the Dragon bar. It's basically your heads-up display or user interface for Dragon, basically what you see when it's open. It's where you access Dragon's different menus and features, and most importantly, turn the microphone on and off. This isn't something that constantly listens to you. You tell it when to listen to you and when to transcribe your text. Now, as Eric mentioned here, I'm going to be using a PowerMic. A PowerMic is to give you an actual picture of what this looks like. It's a little handheld device, about 6 inches long, ergonomic, sits very comfortably in your hand. And I find it very easy because I like to use my phone when I'm talking to a customer, and I'll actually use this to relay my notes as well at the same time. And I'll even use it to capture what I'm saying to the customer. Not what the customer's saying to me, because remember, Dragon itself is going to learn your particular voice, how you speak and how you dictate. So, this isn't for capturing the customer's voice, but it's for you if you want to repeat back to the customer, if you want to just create follow-up notes, whatever that happens to be. So I find this very, very helpful to just press this red button, speak to Dragon, and it captures everything that I'm saying. The other thing I want to point out today is I'll be working in large, mainly within Microsoft Word and Outlook, and you're going to have the question of, is this going to work in my application? Is this going to work in Thompson One? Is this going to work in Waves? Is this going to work in whatever Smart Station or whatever application you happen to be using? And the answer is yes. You really got to think of Dragon as another keyboard that you're using with your voice instead of your fingertips. Right now, we're so accustomed to open up the application, put your cursor where you want the text to go, and then you type. The only thing we're going to be doing differently here is instead of typing manually on the keyboard, I'm going to be enabling my microphone in Dragon and dictating what I want actually typed. So as long as you can type into a field with your keyboard, so can Dragon. So I just wanted to point that out because a lot of people will look at my demonstrations and say, you're using just Word and Outlook. Do I have to have those applications? Is that only where I can dictate? You can dictate anywhere you can put the cursor and type. You just need to tell Dragon where the text should go. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and open Microsoft Word. So Eric mentioned the capability to call upon applications that you use frequently. We're really looking through your start menu. We're looking through your desktop to see if there's application shortcuts. And we just create a command right there on the fly that you can say open or start any application that's on your computer. I'm just going to go ahead and write some quick notes. Imagine here I've just got done a meeting on somebody's retirement plan, somebody named Paul, and now I want to document what happened in that meeting. Paul would like to retire in 10 years, and Mary would like to continue to work part-time for another 5 years after Paul retires, period, new paragraph. And I know I haven't gotten very far in my demonstration here, but I wanted to explain something really quickly. You might be noticing, well, Dragon doesn't write out letter by letter or word by word, much like I would see from typing it on my keyboard. It writes out utterance by utterance, or phrase by phrase, if you will. It does this because if you think about the English language, it's chock full of words that sound the same, what we call homophones. They're spelled differently, but they're said the same. Your, there, no, and no. How does Dragon know the difference? Actually, the same way that you and I would, through the surrounding words, through the context. So I like to say Dragon is polite and it listens, but really it's gathering the context rather than overzealously writing the wrong version of the word. For example, here, if I were to use a sentence like, Whether the weather is warm or whether the weather is cold will decide whether or not I wear a jacket today, depending on where I am. This isn't a delay. This is, basically Dragon's figuring out the context. It listens for that context and then writes it out. So it knows whether I was talking about something or whether I was talking about something else. In this case, it was weather being warm or weather being cold. Same thing with wearing a jacket versus where I am location-wise. It can figure that out just by the surrounding words in the context. Scratch that. Their main financial goal is to maintain a balanced portfolio to provide adequate retirement income, starting at age 60, period. Their stated initial retirement income goal is $500,000, after tax, spendable dollars, period. We would invest to obtain an annual inflation rate of approximately 3% over their life expectancy, period, new paragraph. They should maintain adequate disability and survivor income, open paren, via level term life insurance, close paren, to maintain current living standards without depleting capital if one or both parents were to pass away, period. Currently, they are both underinsured, so there are recommendations for buying more life insurance and disability insurance for both, period, new paragraph. Caps on, next steps, new paragraph, caps off. Buy new nursing care insurance policies to create a safety net for long-term care, period, new line. Paul indicated that he's willing to quit smoking and refinance the mortgage in 2018, period, new line. Restructure income and assets to achieve current tax liabilities, period, new line. Correct buy. Purchase. Go back. Completely fund college educations for all 3 children, but only at public colleges, period, new line. Increase the average rate of return on investments using asset allocation techniques, period. Select purchase through techniques. Bullet that. So a couple things I want to point out here as well is I can edit my text by voice. I can select text, overwrite it, and you may have even noticed for the word buy, and put out BY instead of BUY. I was talking about purchasing. I decided to change the way I wanted to phrase it by redictating over top of it, but if you notice, there was a correction menu that I could have chose other iterations of the word buy, one of those words that sounds like another word. I was also able to select my text and apply bullets. Right? I can also select all. Copy that. And I'm copying this because I want to use this later on to send a follow-up email to Paul. Send email to Paul Tucker. "2018 financial goals." Cap that. Go to body. Hello, Paul, new paragraph. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today and discuss your financial goals for the upcoming year, period, new paragraph. From the day's meeting, I took down the following notes about your 2018 financial goals, period. Please review them and make any necessary corrections or additions, period. I will also need your response to fill out the life insurance questions below, period, new paragraph. Paste it here. Right, and that's that information that I copied and gathered from my Word document prior to this. New paragraph. Insert life insurance questions. So I'm going to stop there for another second here. And Eric had mentioned earlier, you can create these things called auto texts, the ability to speak a certain phrase and have a block of text written out, standard text, boilerplate text, or even templated text. You have a template of data that you're trying to gather. But instead of trying to go to that template, copy it and paste it, or even just go to it and open it, I can have Dragon insert that text for me automatically just by issuing a short voice command. New paragraph. As you requested, I've included my credentials, open paren, see below, close paren, period, new paragraph. Insert financial info. New paragraph. Thanks, Scratch that. Thanks, Send message. So what you've seen here is really I'm sitting at my computer. I put my cursor where I want the text to go. I can issue commands to edit the text and simply dictate to my computer to have that text written out. But what happens if I'm not at my computer? Can I still accomplish the same goal? And the answer is yes. So I mentioned this in my kind of positioning statement in the beginning, was that you can just as easily dictate like you're seeing here and just capture it in a recording, whether you're using a handheld device like a digital recorder, or I'm using my smartphone. Some people use their tablet if they have that around with them, like their iPad or something along those lines, and they're really just going to record their dictation to then run through Dragon for it to listen to and transcribe. And then you decide what you want to do with the text there. Put it in your CRM, put it in email, what have you. So let me go ahead and I'm going to close this or minimize this Word document, and I want to bring up the screen of my iPhone because that's what I personally use when I'm away from office, visiting a customer, but I need to create those notes while they're fresh in my mind, while I can easily elaborate on them because it's amazing how fast I'll forget. So let me go ahead and pull this up, share my screen, and I'll make this full screen a little bit easier to see. Now, I personally use just the built-in voice memos application. It's on every single iPhone out there. So it's easy to capture your own dictation because all I have to do is hit record and I'm off to the races. I enable my microphone in this and I dictate just like I would if I were in front of Dragon. So in this case, I'm meeting with Sally Smith. We're talking about an HR manager of a certain company that has concerns about their 401k plans. Sally Smith, the HR manager of XYZ company, is currently reviewing employee participation in the company 401k plans, period. The HR manager is concerned that she's been noticing a trend that the plan participants are borrowing too much and more often against their 401k plans, period. She asks that we provide data and information on the risks associated with excessive borrowing so that she could put out an educational communication to the employees, period. I will be following up shortly with an email providing a link to an article that discusses this in full detail, period. So I'm going to stop right there. I've got about 36 seconds of dictation here. That'll come into play in just a few moments here why I'm pointing out 36 seconds. But I'm going to go ahead and tell this that I'm done. In this case, because I'm using voice memo, it's going to ask me what name I should do this, so I can pick really any name. I'll do, Sally Smith, and because we're talking about the 401k plan, I'll just call this Sally Smith 401k. I'll save it. And the nice thing about this application, with a digital recorder, I would normally just dock it. I'd browse it as some kind of external drive or a removable device, if you will. But with my smartphone, I can just email it right to the application. Let's go ahead and bring this up. Do a mail. And I personally have a mail rule so that if I give it a certain name, it'll put it in a particular folder within my inbox. So you're going to notice here that I'm just going to rename this to X-Transcribe. But this isn't something that's required. It's just I have a rule set up for this. So I'm going to send it, and I'm going to switch back to my desktop. So now I've already created the document, or I've sent myself multiple audio files that then go back to my computer. So I can minimize this, and now I'm sitting at my machine, just kind of switching roles here from being away from it back to my machine, and I'll look through and I'll see I have that audio file ready to go. I just save the attachment, right? Because I need to save it so I can run it through Dragon afterwards. So I'll save this. I'll pop it on my desktop and save it. And then within Dragon, all I need to do, whatever medium you want to use or whatever vehicle you want to use to get the audio file there, once you have it on your computer, now it's just a matter of going into Dragon and telling it that you want to transcribe audio and you want to transcribe a recording. Much like attaching a file to an email, I need to browse to the input audio file. What file should Dragon be listening to right now? So I select my audio file, and it will support anything from WAV, MP3, WMA, which are all very common, or something that's common among digital recorders is a DSS or DS2 file, or something from a smart device like my iPhone creates an M4A audio file. So we've really got you covered as far as what kind of audio files can Dragon process. But I select my audio file, I choose open, and Dragon's going to automatically create an output text file. It's going to listen to this audio file and create an RTF, or rich text file, rich text format document. It chooses the same location under the same name as the input audio file, but I can always change this if need be. I can call this, Sally Smith Notes if I wanted to. And I can choose a different location. But at this point, I'm ready to transcribe. I simply click on the transcribe button, And I won't see anything on my screen just yet. This is because Dragon is listening to the audio. It's going through this process of transcribing. I also won't be able to use Dragon at this time. This is because Dragon is busy listening to my voice through my recording. So I won't be able to use it live. I can still go off and work within other documents. I can open up emails, and I can still work on other things. The process usually runs at a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning every minute of dictation takes about a minute of time to transcribe. So in this case, it was pretty quick in transcribing my results because, as I mentioned before, it takes about a minute of audio, a minute of time to transcribe a minute of audio. I had 36 seconds of dictation, so it only took a little less than 36 seconds. But now once transcription is complete, it'll give me a reminder of what audio file that I transcribed, where it put the output text file, and now ask me, what do I want to do with this output now? What do I want to do with the text? I can open it in DragonPad, which is our own little built-in word pad, if you will, or text editor right within Dragon. But I'm not forced to use this. I can open it up in Microsoft Word, or let's say I don't want to open it up in those two applications. I can say just copy the transcribed text to my clipboard, and I'll paste it somewhere else. Or for right now, I might not have time, or I want to move on to the next file, and I want to do nothing else. I'll open this RTF at my own leisure. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to keep this within DragonPad because we do have some extra functionality with DragonPad that I think you'll like. So you'll see the text that shows up. I have it just as I dictated it here, and it's highly accurate. Now, but I want to still make sure that there's no mistakes. I want to make sure that if I'm going to enter this in my CRM or put this into an email or put it behind letterhead, that it's correct. So I can select this text and tell Dragon to play that back. Sally Smith, the HR manager of XYZ company, is currently reviewing employee participation in the company 401k plans, period. The HR manager is... And I'm going to click just to, when I click, it tells, basically tells Dragon, stop playback, and you can always make a correction right there on the fly. I can say things like, capitalize manager. Choose all. Underline Sally Smith. Italicize XYZ company. So I still have the advantage of, even though I already dictated this from a recording, I had a Dragon listen to it and transcribe it. I can still add, append to, delete, make changes, underline, format my text, make corrections as I see fit live using Dragon still. And the other thing I want to point out here is that we don't make you sit in your hands to dictate. You can also use your mouse and keyboard. We don't take that away from you. So you don't have to make the decision of use my voice for everything or just use my mouse and my mouse and keyboard. I frequently use all three together. So what you've seen so far is I'm able to talk to Dragon live, and it transcribes my text wherever I have the cursor, and I've also been able to get my text transcribed from a recording. So really, wherever you are in front of your PC, or if you're away from your PC, you have windshield time, or you just don't have your computer readily available, you can still remain highly productive using the features right within Dragon. So with that, I'll pass it right back to Eric.
Great. Thank you, Tom. So one thing is Tom was demonstrating the capabilities of Dragon. One thing that I wanted to point out and that we hear when speaking with customers is this ability that Tom showed to systemically capture all of these details, whether that's notes that you're dictating into your computer directly or using your iPhone and a recording app, as Tom showed. And really, one aspect that customers tell us is very important about that is client continuity from the standpoint of being able to capture this now, having processes in place where this data is now easily captured and transferred into a CRM system. So you can imagine a situation where if an advisor may leave a firm and is contacted by a new advisor, if that intelligence of the client relationship has not been captured and that new advisor can't pick up where the old one left off, if you will, that client may turn around and say, hey, I'm starting over again. And they may well decide that, I should start over with someone else as opposed to continuing the relationship. So client continuity the ability to capture this data systemically, being able to very easily now capture and put this in, copy and paste into the CRM has become a very important feature that we hear from customers. With that said, let me see if we have any questions. I'll open it up here to see if any questions have come in. Okay, I have a question from Mark. Is there a specific mic or headset that is superior or recommended for this software? And we showed you the PowerMic. We like it. It works very well, but in truth, you can use most any headset. We typically recommend that you use a wired headset for the best results, but PowerMic is not required. It is generally recommended. Okay, question coming in from Nancy. Nancy says, what CRM system or application does the software work with? So as Tom was showing, the application works pretty much with any Windows based application. And you can navigate any of the fields, and you can use applications, as I said, business intelligence applications like Thomson ONE. So as Tom said, if there is the ability to use the keyboard, Dragon can be your replacement for the keyboard. Next question, how does pricing work? So pricing is based upon an open license model. Basically, it is based upon the amount of subscribers that an individual customer may have, and that pricing is flexible based on, it's a perpetual license, so you buy Dragon once, you never have to purchase it again. We do have maintenance and support options that are available as well in addition to that pricing, but we'd be happy to, you can see the names of our sales personnel on the screen now, happy to connect you with either of them, depending if you're in the East or West Coast, to talk about specifics. But it's basically a model based on volume licensing, and it is a perpetual license. You purchase Dragon once, never have to purchase it again, and you have the option going forward of purchasing maintenance and support, which entitles you to any and all upgrades on a go-forward basis. Give it just a moment here, see if there are any other questions. I have a question from Maria. She asked, what is the typical time learning curve that it takes a user to become proficient with the system? Actually, it's some people may remember I mentioned the consumer product. Some people think about back in the 1990s having a long period of time training Dragon, if you will, and reading blocks of text. That is no longer the case at all. It's basically out of the box. You'll see that voice recognition is very high, and as you continue to use Dragon, it gets even more accurate as it relates to specific words and phrases that you use. Dragon, with your permission, will even be able to do things like go in and scan your email and documents to see particular words, phrases, how you structure sentences, etc., to get even better. But the learning curve is very short. It's basically learning how to use dictation and speaking as opposed to writing, and most customers pick that up in a very short period of time once they've committed to using Dragon. Okay, I don't think we have any other questions. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining today. As Elena mentioned, we'll be following up with a recording to this presentation, and we look forward to speaking with you and engaging with you going forward. Please email either of the representatives that you see on your screen with questions. And with that, we thank you for your time today. Thanks very much. This concludes the webinar.